All right, take two, everybody. We have some technical difficulties with Wi-Fi, but we're back. And just to reintroduce myself, I'm Becky Demetrio. I am the Director of Procurement here at Amanda Webster Design. We are located in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, so I don't know where you're tuning in from. If you want to give us a shout out from somewhere and let us know what your weather's like today, we'd love to hear it because it's sunny and probably going up to 70 today. So just to make you jealous, my family is in Ohio, so there's lots of snow, and it's my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom! Okay, so moving on, Jody and I were recently talking about our little LuLaRoe obsession and how people pair some crazy things together. And we were talking about how intimidating it can be to kind of mix and match different patterns together. But as interior designers, we do this all the time, and there are some simple kind of tricks to the trade that can help you achieve this flawlessly. So we're going to wait till a couple people join us here, but that's pretty much what we're talking about today for our first little hump day how-to
I think
program.
we're good to go.
All right, so my first suggestion when starting, we're looking kind of at accent fabrics today. So these aren't necessarily going to be the main pieces in your room. It's not your sofa. It's not necessarily even a chair. We're talking about kind of the accents that you bring into a space. So the first suggestion I have is to choose something you love. This particular fabric is screaming springtime to me, which I'm very excited about. It's happy, it's colorful, and it gives me lots of opportunity to bring in different colors. So even if I started with this and wanted to change it later on, I totally could very easily, which we'll show you how to do today as well. So this is my first little starting point. This would be considered kind of an organic, floral, or abstract pattern. So that's kind of your first suggestion. If you start with something that is organic, floral, or abstract and has a lot of movement and colors to it, you'll have a lot of opportunities to pair things with it. So after starting there, the next thing I'm going to do is pair something that is geometric or structured. So while this is actually curved, I'm kind of lumping it into that category because you see it has a very consistent pattern taking place here. It's not an abstract or floral where movement is taking place all over. You have a very structured, specific pattern all over the piece. You'll see that I decided to go ahead and pull out our light blue color and just kind of a happy little scale pattern. I think it's beautiful. The next thing you want to do when picking your a third pattern is to go ahead and choose something with a very different scale. So you'll see here we have a lot of movement, here we have a little structure, and then as far as scale goes, what that means is something either really small, like what I have here, or something with maybe a really big, wide pattern that is maybe a big, wide stripe, something like that, where it's completely different in scale so it doesn't compete. You'll see by bringing in the pink color, we've made this a really colorful, really fun, kind of poppy pairing, which I love. It's happy, it screams happiness to me. And by adding things to it, so for instance here, I'm going to add even another pattern, get a little crazy, and add in a wall covering that has yet another pattern to it.
Love that.
Now keep in mind when you're pulling these things together, these might be just small doses in the room. So this could be, you know, one accent wall, or it could be everywhere. This might just be a pillow or two, so you don't have to go crazy with it. This doesn't have to be, like I said, your entire sofa. But when you add just a couple of little things like this, it really changes your whole space and can liven up the entire thing. So keep that in mind. One other thing I want to point out is kind of don't ignore all your surfaces. So I'm going to show you kind of a rug option. Since I went small scale with my third fabric, I could bring in something like a big wide stripe for the floor. So now I've got kind of all different scales taking place, lots of pattern happening in this room, but you know, think about having a big neutral sofa and a couple of chairs and things like that. With these as all of your accents, it really doesn't feel too busy. It's just lively and fun and energetic because of the colors that we've pulled out of it. The next thing I want to point out to you is how easily we can change it up. So if we keep this fabric kind of as our starting point, but decide that we want to go a little more subtle, we can pretty easily. So I'm going to bring in something like this. Here's my geometric, and it is a pretty small scale as well. So we've got a couple of little things going on. It has a lot of texture, but we're pulling out our neutral color here. The next thing I want to point out is that you can use solids. It's okay. Solids are good too. While it doesn't bring a pattern in specifically, if you think about addressing your fabric with something like an adorable little trim, that is certainly a way that you can bring a little shape or a little texture or an extra pattern into the room. So if you put this on a pillow, for instance, in a big square around the edges, falling boxes in our library. If you bring this in kind of a big square onto your solid colored pillow, all of a sudden you kind of have a big scale pattern taking place because you have a big square. One more thing, keeping with our subtle kind of feel to this arrangement and scheme, here is a patterned wall covering. But you'll see what this does, because it's so tone on tone, in this case kind of a silver metallic and white, even though there's a pattern taking place and some might think it would feel busy, when you do anything that kind of has tone on tone coloration, it takes it down a notch. So it's there without being in your face. So you'll see, very different from our first pattern, this whole scheme all of a sudden kind of takes a back seat and is a little more soft and subtle. Another pattern that kind of approaches the floor the same way we did the walls, we have a tone on tone rug over here. So all of this kind of feels soft. This is the only one that feels like there's a lot going on. But if you really look, there's kind of a lot happening, which makes it really, really fun and interesting.
Debbie Turk wants to redecorate.
Thanks, Mom. Oh, I've got my mom squad joining us
Happy
today,
birthday.
I think. My stepmom, my mom, and my mother-in-law are all supposed to be joining today.
Yes.
So I've got lots of support. All right, one more I want to show you is kind of taking a super bold approach.
Ooh, Amy wants to know how you would handle window treatments with the pattern.
Ooh, we've got a lot of options for that. You can definitely do solid. If your window treatments are going to be a big piece of your room and you're a little more concerned with wanting to be able to change them out or not wanting to change them out as often, you can definitely take the approach of going with a solid and adding a trim, kind of like we talked about with this pillow, because that's something that you could change down the road pretty easily. The other kind of option we have here is something, a big wide stripe would be amazing. I've got some of those. Or something like this ombre fabric. I mean, kind of gorgeous, just really a subtle way to bring color without having to do a complete solid. So an ombre fabric or maybe a wide stripe, something like that would be a really great way to go if you want to bring some color and a little pattern onto your window treatments. All right, I have one last little scheme to show you. This is for not the faint of heart. So if you want to bring a very bold pop, we can start with this, and you've seen how we've been able to make it poppy, make it more subtle, and now we're going to go bold. So someone with a lot of daring color in their life might go this direction. So this is something that may seem a little crazy and out there. We're pulling just the colors from in there and going with a really sharp geometric color pattern here. But think about it. If this is just on one little pillow that sits on a chair, or it's on a little bench or something like that, it does not have to take over the whole room. We can add in something like this where it's really subtle and soft with just a little bit of pattern. We can add in a little solid. We could add our big solid drapery in there. And all of a sudden you have a really pulled together scheme that you have one super bold pop, but everything else can kind of fall back and feel really good together. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. We've got our floral, organic, abstract type of pattern. We have our geometric, and we have something of a totally different scale. Here, both large and small. All right. So I hope you enjoyed looking at those different little schemes, kind of how you can take one starting fabric and make it look totally different in your space depending on your mood or style. We pulled together a couple of different ones here today too, just to kind of show you that I'm not crazy and it does work for other things. So here I have my organic fabric to start with, my structured geometric, and then a large scale kind of pattern here. It's almost a tree bark type of pattern, so it's kind of non-specific, almost reads as a solid. Another gorgeous ombre fabric that would be an amazing drapery. Some wall covering options, which would totally change the look depending on which way you went. And then, of course, just beautiful solids with texture and, you know, really cool trims that can dress things up. And here, just tons of different things. This scheme, I love blue. I have a million blues in this library that we could pull for this scheme. So I have just a few of them here. Maybe not all of them would be used in the same space, but you can see all the different directions you can go. Big scale geometrics, small scale geometrics, embroidery, wall coverings, gorgeous trims, and of course our kind of floral starting point. And a rug. This one's actually an indoor-outdoor rug too, so keep that in mind. You can have kids and still be fashionable. All right, I think that's it. If we don't have any questions right now, you can always post on our page. Please like our page, Amanda Webster Design Inc. Follow us on Instagram. I think we're on Pinterest. You know, you can kind of find us everywhere. So please join us again when we do another Hump Day how-to. And if you have suggestions on what you want us to talk about, send it our way.
Rebecca's asking, do you recommend doing a single wall covering wall, aka an accent wall, or all 4 walls, or does it just depend on the pattern?
Both. I think it depends on the space. I think it depends on the pattern and what you want it to do in the space. If you want to even start with a wall covering, for instance, we've started kind of with one main pattern. You could start with a wall covering if it was your favorite thing in the room and kind of work around that. So I would say that it really does depend, but keep that in mind when you're pairing things because it's all about scale and proportion too. So if you have something super bold, you know, having it on all 4 walls might totally take over the room. So maybe in that case, if it were something really bold, you may want to stick to one accent wall so it doesn't dominate the entire scheme. But something like a powder bath, all 4 walls, go crazy. It's a small space. You can do something really fun, and there's no other really competing fabrics in a bathroom usually. So that's the space to go bold. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me. I had fun. I hope I didn't say or like too many times, but I'm going to say it on purpose here. Like our page, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.